Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the official Madman commentary on the film, The Shinning, from 1980. So I talked about 2001, I did my requisite ranting about that movie, and in this commentary we're going to tackle another film of Kubrick's, which is my favorite of his. I don't think 2001 is a bad film by any measure, but I do think that this movie kind of upstages it. It does so much in a relatively short period of time. It's about 2 hours long. This movie is another one of those things that you'll come across every so often in your life. And if you're awake, if you're woke, whatever that means to you, you will notice things in this that will make you go, how the fuck is this even available to me to see? How the fuck is this even a real thing? This shouldn't be here. It's not even that it's too good or that it's too edgy and evil and creepy. It's just too much. It's like, how can I access this much information by watching one film? That's what this is like. It's like some exotic zip file compression of strange information into a single experience. It's very dense, is what I'm trying to say. So we have the opening scene here with creepy screaming music, and we have a car going down a mountain road. This is based on a Stephen King novel. The Stephen King novel is not very good compared to the movie. This is Kubrick poaching a Stephen King novel because the premise appealed to him. He's like, I'm going to steal this and make a dark wizard product out of it that's 1,000 times more interesting. And Stephen King hates him for it, as he should. You know, if someone did that with my art, I would hope that I would be proud to have produced a component of it, but it would be, you know, my ego would be bruised, right? Stephen King, his ego was bruised by this movie. The car, for example, in the Stephen King film is supposed to be a red Beetle, and Kubrick replaced it with a yellow one, and then he has a scene in this movie later on where a red Beetle, or whatever model of car it is crashed, and the camera pans over it for a second, and that's his middle finger to Stephen King, where he's like, I'll do whatever the fuck I want. I'm going to poach some ideas from a documentary about this movie. And the documentary is called Room 237. Inevitably, I'm going to do that. I didn't want to do this commentary because I thought to myself, I'm just going to be stealing ideas from that documentary. The documentary's good, but there's a lot of parts of it that are bullshit. And I think they're stretches. I think they're red herrings. They're interpretations of this movie that I don't agree with. So I'm going to do a you poo-poo me, I poo-poo you, academia, blah, 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 blah thing with this commentary where I talk about what I think is legitimate in terms of schizo interpretations of this movie and what I think isn't. I'm going to do a critical thing. I'm going to be James Figueras. I watched Room 237. As a man with maggots for a brain, here are my takes. Here are my takes on this. So the stuff I don't agree with, I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm just going to focus on what I agree with to make things simple. Now, first thing I have to mention. Here we have the interview. We have good old Jack Nicholson. He's a real one. Save his ass. He's good. He shows up in this scene and he talks with Stuart Ullman, who is the owner of a hotel called the Overlook Hotel. Again, there's a lot of bullshit I don't want to mention, I don't want to emphasize. I have to talk about the name of the hotel. The word overlook, what does that summon up in your mind? Oh, I'm overlooking clues. I'm overlooking epic, hidden red herring Rubik's Cubes for my autism brain. Don't get caught up in that shit. That's one of the interpretations I don't want to emphasize, even if it's legitimate. It's not the point. This movie is saying very important, deep, creepy, serious shit. And interpretations like that are distractions. They are red herrings. So, in the interview scene, I know I'm getting behind the dialogue. Also, I really want a PB&J sandwich right now. I don't know why. Anyway, in the scene where he goes into Ullman's office, there's a window, and somebody autistically... Here, okay, we've cut back to it. There's a window here that, according to the movie's established layout of the hotel, makes no sense. There shouldn't be light from outside that's able to penetrate this window. That could be a red herring. It could be Kubrick made a mistake. Kubrick was a human being. He was not an immaculate god. He was a genius. He was insane. He made some very cool shit. He could have made multiple mistakes in this movie. That is not beyond the realm of plausibility. The people from the Room 237 documentary are all obsessive schizo pattern recognition fetishists, and they think that everything is secretly a genius move. That's not true. So, I'll preface my comment with that little rant. This window could be a mistake, but if it's not, the point is that there is a false light that couldn't be natural, and it's right behind the owner of the Overlook Hotel. This window, according to the layout of the hotel that the subsequent events of the movie legitimize, there's a layout to this hotel. This window can't exist because this office couldn't have access to a architectural point in the building where light would be able to penetrate. So the point of this window behind Ullman that we're seeing is that it's fake. It's fake enlightenment, it's fake light, it's Satan trying to masquerade as Christ / Prometheus / Lucifer. It's false light, it's false knowledge, false advancement, okay? And again, I'm sorry to say, guys, I'm going to have to talk about some of the language versus psychic power shit that I pulled out of my ass in the 2001 and in other videos that I've made. Because this movie is trafficking in it directly. Again, I'm not coming up with this shit on my own, okay? I'm being James Figueras here. If you want to dab on me and humiliate me, go ahead. I don't give a shit. You know, I'm pulling these takes from the symbolism I'm seeing in the movie because I've been trained to interpret symbolism in a particular way, and also I've been personally inclined to agree with Carl Jung, whose work has been disparaged and discarded because academia is so obsessed with new ideas, even if they suck ass, that they throw out the baby with the bathwater, quite literally, when they throw out old ideas that are actually objectively correct. They're conceptual evolutionary dead ends. Maybe they're right to a fault. Maybe they're so right that you can't generate new flashy ideas because it's just going to be the same idea that you're talking about. Carl Jung is one of those people who tried to red pill the normies a little too much. That's why I sympathize with his interpretation of symbolism, and that's why my takes on movies like this and 2001 are going to be, they're going to have a Jungian bent, because that's just where I'm comfortable, okay? Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe Jung was wrong. Whatever the case, I'm going to interpret things in that way. And the reason I'm talking about all this is because this window and a lot of other objects and areas and events in this film are very Jungian. And because it came out in 1980, it came out before Carl Jung fell out of fashion in academia. The academons didn't like Carl Jung after a certain point. They were fascinated by his confession of a real angelic truth that they could try to corrupt and misuse. And after they got bored of that, they were like, well, what other ideas can we cannibalize? So, I have to go out of my own head for a minute and back into the movie here, because we are right now panning into Danny's bathroom, and there is a sticker on the door of Dopey the Dwarf. Okay? That is from the Disney movie Cinderella. The movie 237, Room 237, points out something about that sticker that I didn't notice till I watched that movie, and I want to say that movie's good. You should check it out if you're interested in this movie and the lore behind it. The epic schizo lore that people have wasted their lives obsessing over. There are certain things in that movie that are very insightful, genuinely true takes about this film. One of them is that sticker of Dopey the Dwarf, who's an ignorant retard, that sticker disappears after we see this scene. And this scene is Danny, the little boy, It's him trying to access his psychic powers. It's him trying to circumvent the bondage system of language and actually psychically intuit something. He's trying to be a good, normal, non-satanic being and evolve normally by accessing his psychic powers. The problem with that is, and this may be why language exists in the first place, is when you do that, imagine the hell of being able to read the thoughts of everybody around you. Can you imagine that? If you could actually do that, you'd kill yourself in less than an hour, I think. And that's what psychic powers are. That's why if you ascribe to all these creepy, crazy, insane, false, schizo narratives about previous civilizations, if there was a previous civilization on Earth whose existence has been erased, and if the people in that civilization were more adept at using psychic communication and didn't need language, maybe that society destroyed itself because collectively, when it degenerated, it blew up everything. And maybe language is a necessary evil. Maybe the bindings of runes and shapes and characters and letters and words are a better alternative. That could be the case. I don't want to demonize language. Again, the reason I bring this up is that Danny, this character, he's obviously some sort of psychically sensitive person. And that's revealed a little bit later in the film. If you've never seen this before, God, I hope you're watching it with my commentary for the first time. Hi, how you doing? I will be your monolith guide. I will be your Virgil guiding you through this movie. I couldn't quite escape hell. There's a little tiny grain of it that I enjoy a little too much, so I will be your hell tour guide. Welcome. Just make sure you pay the price of being here. Well, you already have. Anyway, Danny's character, he has some kind of prescience, some kind of psychic ability, he has some kind of gift, and he has an episode in the bathroom. He has an episode of possession. He has an episode of out-of-body type of shit, where he leaves his body for a moment and he collapses because he has this experience with no experience. He has no experience with his own powers. Because our society is so degenerate and shit and ignorant that it doesn't teach us from birth that we have the potential to develop psychic powers and that shit should be controlled. Instead, it just teaches us our ABCs. Well, your ABCs are enough to protect you from your latent powers. No, they're not. Language is not enough. Mathematics is not enough, etc., etc. It's the flaw of the West. I talked about this in a previous video. Now, another funny detail in this scene I should point out, he's reading Playgirl. That's the magazine he just dropped on the chair there, Jack Torrance. That's a gay porn magazine. So this guy's a closeted homosexual, okay? That's the implication. Why the fuck would he be reading that? Why? He's in public. He's in a fucking hotel lobby. Why would he be reading that if he wasn't gay? Nothing wrong with that. It's like the Seinfeld meme. It's like, not that there's anything wrong with that. There isn't if you control it, okay? You can be possessed by any kind of fucking force, good or evil. If you can't control a good force possessing you, you're just going to bleed into the void for nobody. You're going to be so pious, you destroy yourself for useless piousness. If you're evil, it's the same shit. If you want to host something evil, you can destroy yourself if you can't fucking handle it. My point is, Jack Torrance is clearly gay, or he has curiosity about that, so he's reading this magazine. And this is where I have to bring up some creepy shit. This is the point where I can't avoid doing it, as much as I would like to. So as we pan in on poor Danny's face here, he's looking at these two girls. It's the twin aspects of Sophia. That's not what it is. I'm making a Gnostic joke. Basically, this movie has a subtext to it that I think is unfortunately legitimate. I think it's true. And the subtext is that Danny's father molested him. It's not that he beat him once or twice when he was drunk. That's not what happened. That may have happened. That's not the point. The point is he was raping him. He was fucking him. That's what the movie's saying. I'm not making any statement about any other shit. You know, anybody else's life, the actors, my life, anything. That's not what I'm saying. I want to be very clear. In the movie's context, it is directly implying that. And there's an even darker, creepier interpretation of that. If you're some kind of sicko, just keep watching and like and subscribe, because I'm going to talk about how that's even worse later on. There's something even worse about it. The fact that it happened, you would think would be the worst thing that this movie could imply, or that it could overtly say. However it transmits that information, it's heinous, regardless of how it's transmitted. But I'll leave that till later. What you need to understand right now watching this, while they're introducing the snowcat, which is just another red herring. I mean, the thing is, it's bright red. This whole scene is a waste of time, of them being like, look at us, snowcat, it can plow through snow. That plays, a part. It plays a role later in the movie, that object. But it's not important. Again, Kubrick is knowingly playing with your brain. He's juggling your brain in his hands by showing you this. He's having a bit of evil fun. The thing about that guy, in every movie he made, is that he plays with your attention and your ability to interpret symbols because he has a little bit of evil fun doing it. He fucks with you. He shows you tons of irrelevant but seemingly relevant shit. There's tons of red herrings in this movie. There's tons of Rubik's Cube landmines planted to blow up autistic brains. So, the important thing is Danny's character here. He's clearly got a very rare gene that gives him some semblance of psychic ability despite his infection with the alien virus of language, the bondage system of language. He's able to still be psychic. So by the standards of the culture at this time when the movie was made, and still by our culture's standards now, he's just nuts. He's schizophrenic. He's insane. Blah, blah, blah. He's sensitive, or he's intuitive, is the real truth. And again, if you're too sensitive, you'll just be possessed by a demon, and you might as well be schizophrenic. You should be locked up. If you're permanently possessed by some insane shit, and you can't function in any possible way, then, sorry, bro, you're gone, So, the point is that this little kid here, he's psychic. And his dad may or may not have been fucking him. We don't really know. But it's suggested, right? Again, that's not something that's overtly communicated to you. And it's a theory from that same movie, Room 237. That movie could be total bullshit. Every theory in it could be wrong. I'm not advocating that you should believe any theory from it. What I'm saying is, I think there are a couple that are legit. There are a couple theories that are potentially valid. And there's a bunch of, interpretations of props. I'm not going to get into that type of shit. I'm not going to get that specific about, objects. I don't have the time. This commentary needs to be the same length as the movie, okay? So, Dick Halloran, our epic little minstrel man who's going to entertain the white folks. He's leading them through the creepy mansion. Oh, son, you got raped by your daddy? Don't worry. That's just how they pass on the psychic powers. Don't even worry about it, boy. My daddy raped me every day. That's not what he's saying. That's not what I'm saying either. Basically, he's connected with Danny. He's like, oh, you're able to resist language as well. That's dangerous, If you're able to resist language in any way, you are slightly unbound. And from the perspective of those who worship language as a binding system for psychic forces, you are an enemy of anybody. You're very fucking dangerous. Keep that in mind. If you've had any ability in your life to resist being programmed through language, you are extremely dangerous. And you're dangerous to yourself as much as to anybody else. And you need to be cognizant of that and be very fucking careful with your body and your mind and the chemicals you imbibe and the habits you form. You have to be 10 times as careful as the average moron who is just a drone. If you are able to resist language like Halloran, like Danny, like Jack Torrance, you need to be really fucking careful, okay? Take this from me. I've had personal experience with not being careful about this. The results are not fun. That's all I'll say. I've been through some unfun shit, okay? Maybe I didn't learn my lessons because I'm making this commentary. I probably shouldn't even be making this. I don't give a shit. I think that's why I'm here. I'm meant to make stuff like this. So he's saying to Danny, you have a conscience, you have a conscious mind, right? That's pretty basic. You have an awareness that you are not the body you inhabit. You know that you are a being that is non-physical. That's dangerous enough, man. You can destroy whole societies. One person who knows that better than most other people around them can blow up a whole society just by being more woke than the people around them. And I'm using that term in a sense that's not its original context. The political context of that term is horse shit. I'm using it in a psychic context that I just invented just now. It's the bespoke madman context for things. So that's the way I'm using that term. From now on, please be aware of that. So Halloran is saying, you have a voice that tells you insights. It gives you predictions. It's like a little oracle. Maybe it's an angel, maybe it's a demon, whatever it is. It's something that has been attuned to your genetics and to the electromagnetic frequency of your DNA or your brain or whatever. It's something that is in you for whatever reason. Again, I'm not going to get into the minutia of the dozen and a half theories about this type of crap. The point is that you have a connection to something. If you're an artist and you like to paint landscapes, you are connected with something that wants you to paint landscapes. It's using your body as a tool to make shit, okay? That's the point of this. And Danny in this scene is betraying how sort of grown up he is psychically. In a lot of ways, he's older than Halloran is in terms of being psychic. And that's something that this movie traffics in that's kind of hard for me to talk about without seeming like a creep. So I'll be very blunt. Your psychic abilities, if psychic powers are even real, which I don't think they are, but this movie says they are, so we're going to go with it. If they're real, there are certain minds that are more mature and certain genetic patterns that are fundamentally more experienced with channeling psychic energies than others. So you could have an 80-year-old man dying in a bed who is psychically mute and totally dead, and you could have a 2-year-old child who is more psychically mature than that other person is. And I want to make this very clear. That's not a justification for any kind of creepy sexual shit. If people try to make that argument to you, you know, that's bullshit, okay? It's not true. What I'm saying is that this movie has a scene in it where we have a 60-year-old black guy talking to a white child. They're completely racially different. They're different in pretty much every way. They're kind of polar opposites except for their gender. But the implication is that they're psychically equivalent to one another enough that they can talk to each other about their psychic experiences. Okay? That's important. Danny is right now interrogating this guy, Halloran, who a second ago was giving our main character a sort of tutorial about their own psychic abilities. He was saying to him, hey, I can sense you're psychic. Are you mature or are you being abused and harmed by whoever your parents are or your minders are? And Danny goes, well, I kind of know what my abilities are. You know, I'm a little bit more mature than I maybe should be for the age of my body or my vessel or my house or my temple. My mind is a little bit more experienced than its body is, or the part of my mind that connects me to my abilities is a lot more advanced than my body is. There's a disconnect there. That's always the case, one way or another, in this movie's logic. And in that scene, I got to say another sort of set piece interpretation that I think is true. If you were watching that scene a second ago, you may have to go back. I'm sorry, I can't keep up with this shit very quickly. I can't tell you guys everything I want to say right away. But Danny's head was encircled by knives that were hanging above him on a white pillar. When he was conversing with Halloran, he had a halo of knives above his head, a crown of thorns. It's almost like someone who's very psychically experienced, whatever form they take, is important and is also under a big threat. There's a lot of evil bullshit that is going to be attracted to a person who has those abilities. whoever or whatever they are, whether they're a 90-year-old Indian guy or a 40-year-old Chinese woman or a 2-year-old white kid, it doesn't matter. They're under threat. Because if they have a connection to something that language has failed to bind and rape and geld and castrate and fuck with, then they are dangerous to any forces that worship language as a binding system. And again, maybe language is a better binding system. I don't know. But I know it's a binding system. I know it's a sorting system. I know it influences how we think, behave, eat, sleep, fuck, etc. It influences everything. It's so pervasive, man. It's so insidious. It seems to bind the things that loathe it the most. Is that a good thing? Maybe it is. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's an inferior binding system or an inferior container for energy. At the end of the day, any pattern, right? Any matter in this universe is a container for energy. Energy can take any form. All that matters, literally and figuratively, is that the form that the energy is compelled to take is a good form. You know, an orange is a pretty good form. A lemon is a pretty good form. You know, a sarin bomb in a Japanese train, that's maybe a not so good form, right? Just a random example from my head. You know, I don't know, a wood chipper in a dark basement used to grind children into blood pudding is probably a bad form in that context, right? That's a bad way of knotting energy strings into something material. What this movie is saying about psychic powers is that Jack Torrance and his son and his wife are all different random forms, and they are trying to contain energy or power in some way. And, you know, the hotel itself is like this. This movie is very sort of, it traffics in a theory called panpsychism, which is that every object in space and every seeming every area that seems empty, every molecule, every instantiation of energy in a material form. Energy itself is material, though, so including energy itself. They all have a very small amount of consciousness. They're all semi-conscious in some way. And reality, again, if you interpret it like a D&D game, it's like a maze. It's a fun video game for beings that are even higher than what we call energy. It's things that we can't conceptualize. They come down here to play. They come down here to fuck around and have fun. And this will come into play later with Jack Torrance. I promise I'm not just spouting out crap to indulge myself. The whole multidimensional energy thing comes into play later as well, directly. So we have Jack Torrance looking into the maze. He's watching his wife and son. In a sense, if he's a closeted, gay, abusive father, he's jealous that his wife is having more time with his son than he is. That's the creepy subtext of that scene. I hate to have to say it. It's like acid on my tongue. It makes me kind of want to puke. But that's what this movie's trying to say. I do think the interpretation of this movie like that has some validity to it. The symbolism is unignorable. It's blatant. It's screaming at you that that's what this movie's saying. And that only gets worse as the movie goes on. Clearly, Jack Torrance is jealous of his wife's relationship with his own fucking son. He's jealous that his son is more comfortable with his mother than he is with him. So maybe you shouldn't have raped him then, dude. Anyway, he's stuck at room 237, the moon room. And again, there's another conspiracy I don't want to spend too much time on because I've touched on it before. And it's a common thing that's talked about when people criticize this movie. Again, 100,000 people have made this same take. You know, I'm treading over old ground. But this room, 237, the moon, is 237,000 miles from the Earth. And that's not a estimate. It's exactly 237 million miles from Earth. Like 0.00, like exactly that distance. That's a bit creepy. It's almost like a Truman Show thing where the moon is an alien ship or a colony ship or a hive of demons or a hive of angels or some kind of unearthly thing. It's something that came to Earth artificially without obeying the laws or the theories of astrology and cosmology and astronomy that we currently understand. It's very fucking strange, is my point. And the fact that Kubrick is considered to be the person who faked the moon landing, and he made a movie where Room 237 was the most terrifying thing you could possibly access, it'd be like him saying, don't believe that the moon landing is fake until you're allowed to believe or allowed to know that it was faked. If you believe that before the allotted designed time, you will not enjoy the consequences. It's like him saying, I've made this illusion because we had to at this point in time. The narrative of reality, the D&D game of reality, needed a sequence of illusions to achieve a certain goal. And if you figure out this illusion too early and you try to red pill other people, you'll have a bad time. You'll have a bad experience. But Danny, because he's young and psychically hypersensitive for his age of his body, he looks at Room 237. He has a sense. I know the Kubrick conspiracy. I know X, Y, and Z conspiracy theories are probably true. What do I do? And it's like, don't fuck with those things. You're not supposed to, okay? That's what the movie's saying. Again, you can interpret this in a lot of ways. And this scene, we got to go back to the movie for a sec. He's like, you're distracting me, bitch. I'm trying to write my epic novel. It's going to be great. It's going to be better than the Stephen King slop that this movie's based on. I'm working right now. I'm doing busy work. I'm doing Ted Kaczynski over-civilized, over-socialized, time-wasting crap that's trying to channel my animal instincts into containers that are failing to contain them. It's trying to channel my psychic energy into containers that are too weak for it. Basically, he's bored. He's trapped here in the Overlook Hotel, like we're trapped on Earth, and he's like, the busy work, the random tasks I'm being given, are not sufficient to entertain me. He's like, can't you get me a gaming PC, Wendy? If I could play League of Legends, maybe I wouldn't have raped her son. That's what he's really saying. This poor fucker, he's a gamer. He's a gamer before gaming was a thing. Guys, that's the occult point of The Shining. The real point is, we need video games or our society is going to collapse. Video games are a force of good. If we don't have them, we'll all turn into Jack Torrance, unhinged, unbound psychic entities that will blow up continents. That's what video games are really for. I hope that's not true, but part of me suspects it is. So again, he's jealous of his wife and kid. He's like, I was trying to have a connection with this child, a very dark, creepy, disgusting connection. And, oh God, I had this idea. I'm going to say it. Might as well say it now and get it out of the way. So, this movie, eventually, it doesn't do this now, but there's a glut of scenes I can rant over because nothing's happening that I want to talk about. Shit's happening all the time. I mean, there's props and scenes and all sorts of things. This is a good time to say this. This movie is bad enough, dark enough, creepy enough for implying that the main character is raping his son. That's bad enough. On top of that, the movie implies, or rather it sort of screams at you. By the Kubrick standard, which is very subtle, this is not subtle. This is very blatant. if you interpret the dialogue as a conscious person who understands subtext and the unconscious and understands symbolism, there's a line of dialogue later on that I'm just going to talk about now. And what it says is, the only way to circumvent the bondage system of language that tries to mute or dilute or control or abuse your psychic powers is through sex. And this is a common excuse that a lot of creepy cults will use. So I want to make it extremely clear that I do not advocate that you believe this. All I am saying is that this movie is implying this to you. And that's according to my fucked up, insane interpretation. What this movie says at a certain point, and we'll get there, with some dialogue that comes from Jack Torrance's mouth, is that Jack Torrance, as a character in this movie, he's a writer. He's trying to pass on some kind of psychic ability to resist the influence of language to his son, Danny. In order to do this, he had to rape him. That's what this movie's saying. Because what Jack Torrance says is, he says his mother interferes. The woman, the evil woman, according to a misogynistic drunk character, who's insane, right? He's unhinged in this movie. He's nuts. But what this movie's saying is that according to this insane misogynistic character, homosexual behavior between a father and son is necessary to pass on psychic abilities or to somehow enhance them or make the son resistant to the influence of language. And the same could be said of female stuff, right? Because women have a shared suffering, they bleed from their vaginas once a month. The mother and daughter system of passing on psychic powers that can resist language is default. It's done by biology. You don't have to make any subsequent act. The implication that this movie is trafficking in, and I hate that I used the word trafficking, Jesus Christ, fucking save my soul. The implication is that for men, you have to do it artificially, through the ass. You have to have a connection that is a masculine father-son homosocial connection that is accomplished through butt stuff, because that's the only way to make the psychic abilities of men able to be passed on from father to son. You have to mimic menstruation. Anal sex is a mimicry of menstruation, is what this movie's trying to say. I feel sick right now, guys, and I'm not joking. I'm sorry that I just said that. Legitimately, I'm sorry I said that. I'm sorry to whatever higher power there is, but I had to do it. If I'm going to tell the truth while I'm here, which is I think what I'm supposed to do, I gotta say it. That's what this movie's saying. And I was not abused, I was not fucked with by anybody, familial or otherwise. I am not projecting my own bullshit into this interpretation. What I'm doing is I'm using intuition and education to interpret a piece of art. I didn't want to make this commentary, straight up. I didn't want to do this. But part of me was like, dude, you need to do it. Because you can do it. And I was like, okay, you know. I hope I'm not serving fucking Mick Jagger from Burnt Orange Heresy. Like, make the commentary about The Shining and talk about rape the whole time. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm trying to do. So again, in this scene, we have this damaged would-be author who's an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic. And he's jealous of his mom's relationship with his son. He's jealous that his son has a bit of a feminine mind. He has a female-inclined brain. Maybe he's gay, whatever. Whatever the case, he's like, you're not spending enough time with me. You don't love me enough. You're not paying enough attention to me. You know, I'm your father. I love you in more ways than one. Again, very creepy. If I wasn't drunk, I couldn't talk about this shit. And he's like, oh, I love you, Danny. I love you so much. I'm trying to pass on my psychic powers to you. I'm sacrificing a hell of a lot to do it. And he's like, yeah, I'm fucking creeped out, though. He's like, Dad, I'm kind of creeped out by this. Does it have to go down this way? And he's like, yeah, we don't have periods, so we have to fake that we can relate to each other through bodily suffering, like menstruation. It's like, maybe take the kid fishing, you fucking creep. Maybe lift weights with him. Maybe do anything other than what you did. You took the easy road out, didn't you? You found the easy route, and you took it because you were too autistic to figure out a legitimate way to connect with your son. Your wife beat you to it, man. Your wife beat you to connecting with your son. Happens a lot these days. It's a common thing. Father figures in modernity, I mean, starting before 1950, but let's pick 1950 as an arbitrary starting point. Fathers often have to spend an inordinate, unnatural, unprecedented time away from their children, whether they're girls or boys. The fallout of that is that you don't have a father figure, and your ape, lizard, McJagger brain, McApe brain, is going to look at that situation, and it's going to influence your conscious mind. Like, there is no way to avoid that. If your father figure's not present, as much as they were in the Ook, Ooga Booga, Cro-Magnon, Grug, caveman times, that acceleration of false evolution mediated by language is going to have a detrimental effect on male minds. Male brains are not going to be able to cope with that without some fucking fallout, man. Why do you think men are trying to be women? Why do you think there's more gay guys? Why do you think that is? Is it because of xenoestrogens in the water? That's part of it. But the real problem is, my dad didn't go fishing with me. We didn't share a painful experience. I didn't connect with him through physical pain that is shared between us. And the reason that the creepy cults are producing the most viable people who don't seem insane, they seem to be able to act and perform and put on masks and take them off and be politicians and lawyers and whatever. Those people grew up in cults involving anal sex, because anal sex is a replacement for menstruation for men. It is a way for men to pass on psychic abilities. It's fucked up. I don't like it. I'm not saying that's a good thing. What I'm saying is that that's what this movie is saying. Look, red asshole carpet with a brown fucking coating. Can Kubrick scream it at you any more loudly than this? Oh, the carpet's it's actually the launch pad from the Kennedy Space Center area. It's where the rockets launch from. It's an Apollo rocket. That's totally not a penis. Guys, this movie, it's really about the moon landing. Don't actually figure out what it's really about, which is anal sex. That's not what it's about. It's actually about the moon landing. That's the red herring, okay? That's the white herring. The real thing this movie's trying to say is much more basic, much more primal, much more frightening and fucked up. Sorry, I'm fucking gagging talking about this shit, for real, straight up. This is not easy for me to say, okay? This movie is trying to tell you something more basic. It's not trying to talk about the moon landing. Who the fuck cares whether it was real or fake? Does that matter? Does that really matter? Who cares? What effect is that going to have on your life? Being told about occult sex rituals is infinitely more relevant to your actual life and your interactions with people. If you're trying to determine whether a person that you're potentially about to network with or connect with or have a relationship with in any way, shape, or form is a good person, you got to be cognizant of this shit. And that's not to say you should judge the person if they've gone through it. What I'm saying is you need to be aware that it exists. You need to be aware that this is a part of society, that it's been a part of human society since we lived in fucking caves. Whether it's good or evil, It just is. And this movie is horrifying in part because it communicates this to you subconsciously. It tells you this subtly in a way that is creepily effective. Even if you don't know that you've been told it, if you're not watching my epic commentary and you haven't liked or subscribed to my videos, you've watched this movie. If you have, you already know this. Your subconscious knows it. You've been programmed. You've been subtly raped. And even good art does this to you. Good art is a subtle rape. Now, speaking of which, we have Wendy coming to Jack. He's had this horrible nightmare, and he's like, oh my God, I killed you. I killed my wife and child. And the reason he did, in the context of the movie, is he became obsessed with modernist, urban, city dweller, mechanized HAL 9000 hell distractions from primal reality. He became obsessed with writing a novel. I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to write a novel and be the next great novelist. He became so obsessed with that in his dream, his Jungian subconscious was trying to tell him, if you keep going down this path, you're going straight to hell, like James Figueras from my epic Burnt Orange Heresy video. You have become so infatuated with distractions for your conscious higher mind that you've neglected your lower body, and by extension, you've neglected the natural act of reproduction that allows humans to exist in this dimension. You have neglected your wife and child by being too obsessed with your work. That's the criticism. That's not always the case. I don't want to say that that's unequivocally bad. You can be a workaholic male and have a successful family. There's plenty of ways to do that. You just have to put in effort. Problem is, people take shortcuts. People drink to get through a workday. People neglect their family because their work has hypnotized them too much, even if it's a providing source, even if it's good, whatever the work is. You have to do something. You have to provide for your family, obviously. Duh. But if you get too deep into that rabbit hole, that rabbit butthole, you're just going to be fucked. Your family's going to be fucked. And here we have the scene where Wendy is looking at her son, and for the first time, she's like, you did this. I trusted you, and you raped our son. You raped him. Maybe not literally, but in the context of this movie, it doesn't matter. The movie is implying that mistreating your son as a father, if you do it in one way or another badly enough, whatever the mistreatment was, whatever form it took, maybe you made fun of him for having to piss on road trips that were too long, and he has a bladder a quarter of your size. You made fun of him. You gave him a piss fetish. Then now he can't talk to normal women. Maybe you beat him, and now he has a BDSM fetish. Whatever the thing is, the sins of the father shall be visited upon the son. Blah, blah, blah. Bible, Bible, Bible. Bible, Babel. The Tower of Bible. The Tower of Babel. That's all I have to say about that. My point is, don't look for advice from one source. Look at multiple sources. My point is that regardless of how the abuse happened, what form it took, every parent is imperfect. Every parent makes mistakes, because we're all human, right? It's not an excuse for whatever this fucker did. Clearly he did something pretty heinous. But what I'm saying is that this movie, it's not making excuses for its characters. It's saying, if you are unaware of how you're rearing, and I hate that fucking term. Why is it an ass term? Why is raising a child either contingent upon the term raise, which is like literally raising a demon, and we call our kids kids. The term kid is a baby goat. Kids are not baby demons. Why are you demonizing them before they're even born? Second of all, the term rearing. Butt smacking, spanking. That's creepy fetish shit. Spanking, it's creepy fetish shit, and creepy authors of a certain persuasion wrote child-rearing books that recommended that. And boomer parents were so brain-fucked that they thought that that legitimized that practice. That practice came from earlier. In any case, don't slap your kid on the ass as a punishment. What do you think that's going to do to them later on? How do you think that's going to influence their mind, their sense of self, their sense of sexuality? Maybe that might fuck them up a bit. Did you ever think about that? No, because you were too focused on your epic novel you were trying to write. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I'm more focused on that than my own children. I'm an idiot. Anyway, this scene is amazing. This is the best scene in the film. The bar scene. Oh my God, I love this scene. There's no better scene. His eyes are lit like lizard eyes. His pupils look vertical. They look, however the lighting was done, there's a reflection in Jack Nicholson's eyes from the artificial lighting used to make the shot that it visually presses inward on the black part of his eye, the pupil, and it makes it look lizard-like. It makes it look vertical. That's nuts. I wouldn't be surprised if Kubrick did that intentionally. Again, 160 IQ plus guy. He's insane. He would do that. He was like, I want the bar scene to make them look like lizards, and he's saying this to himself in his own head. And then when he directs the movie, he's like, I want lights to be placed here, 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 and here exactly. And the people doing the set design are like, that's going to be a pain in the ass, and it won't light the scene very well. It'll light it better if we place them here. And Kubrick goes, just do what I fucking say. Trust me. Just trust me. When Madman watches this movie in 2024, he'll notice the lizard eyes, and that will be my redemption. Kubrick, you get to go straight to heaven, man, wherever the fuck you are. If you're not already there, which you should be, you get to go straight there. Not that I have any power to do that, but if I did, I'd send him straight there. I'd be like, dude, you should have been there immediately. Like, you did some crazy shit. So again, this bar scene. He's like, I never laid a hand on him. And then he changes his story. Because he's drunk. When you get drunk, it's like truth serum. You slowly start to tell the truth. And initially, he's like, I never laid a hand on him. And what he means to say is, I never wanted to beat him intentionally. I didn't intentionally fuck with my kid, or fuck him literally. It just sort of happened. I couldn't resist. I lost control. I made a human mistake. And he's like, finally, I'm confessing. Again, like James Figueras, who the fuck are you confessing to? He's confessing to Satan. Why would you confess to Satan? Why would you do that? Why? Because he gave you some booze. Have some booze from me, Jack Torrance. You then confess to me instead of God. He's like, okay, I'll do it. My Jack Nicholson is always angry, because Jack Nicholson's hard to do an impression of unless he's angry. But anyway, he's making excuses. He's like, it was just a few inches of cock. Oh, God, I almost didn't rape him, but then I did. Again, straight up, I want to make this very clear. I'm not, making I'm not making this video as some excuse to admit that I was abused or something. I feel like I have to say that, because I've been talking a lot about this shit. It's making me anxious. It's making me neurotic. That's not the case. On my own soul and the souls of everyone in my family, I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that. That is not what I'm saying. That is not true. What I am doing is I'm trying to summon up from this movie shit that people have not adequately focused on in any criticisms that I've seen of this film. They haven't had the balls to do it. But you know what? Me, Madman, I got balls the size of basketballs. I got balls the size of cannonballs. I gotta carry that weight. You know what I'm saying? It's like the cross I gotta bear. It's actually my iron cannonballs. I gotta drag that shit around my scrotum. It's gotta be made of metal mesh to carry those balls around. Alright? I'm doing this for you, motherfuckers. You better appreciate that shit. Anyway. So now we're cutting to Dick Halloran's place. And I gotta say, his taste in art, 10 out of 10. That is great. That woman above the TV, man, He's a real one. Yeah, it's sort of pornographic, but it's beautiful. It's an African woman with a afro so big, it's comical. She's showing her titties, to all of us, but it's sort of artistic. Like he's like, yeah, reality's lurid and sexual, but there's art to it. The female form can be beautiful. I'm going to celebrate that openly, and if you don't like my art, if you want to call me a perv, blow me. Good for him, man. He's owning it. He's binding it. He's taking his sexual desire and he's saying, if I have this painting in my house, it shows me an image of sex that is fake, and it helps me to be less horny. Maybe he's, a little more horny than someone else of perhaps another race. And he's like, I get it. That's my weakness. I'm going to own my weakness. Good for you, man. Good man. Do it however you have to. That's good. That is good. But now he's like, oh shit. Danny is connecting with me. Because something's happening. Something very bad. Danny's telling him in this scene, this is my personal interpretation, he's saying, my dad is looking into the moon landing. And as a boomer, he has to believe that it happened. That's part of his programming from his era. He's starting to figure it out. This is not good. If too many of his generation figure this out, the video game of reality will not play out the way it should. People who are moon landing conspiracy theorists who are of boomer age need to be portrayed as insane, or they're people who are actors who are paid to advance those theories as being false. Because the conflict between Russia and the States was its own kind of fake thing. Boomers constructed their sense of self during that cultural moment, and if you red pill them, they will go insane. And the money they've accumulated, the energy that they've bound into certain forms that are useful and transmittable to their descendants will be wasted. So Danny is saying, my dad is a little smarter than he should be. And he's figured this shit out. And he wasn't supposed to. And this is bad. He's looking at a woman who looks very much like Bernice Hollis from Burnt Orange Heresy, which I did a review on, and you should watch it and like and subscribe. But he's found the witch behind the con, behind the illusion of the moon landing. Again, I don't believe that's true. It's just what this movie's evoking. It's what it's summoning up in my mind. I'm just being honest about it. It's almost like when you're honest, people will think you're nuts because we live in a world of bullshit. If you want the world to be less comprised of bullshit, tell the fucking truth at your own expense. Lose your job. Lose your girlfriend. Distance yourself from your family. Those are all terribly difficult things. But if you have to do that to tell the truth, fucking do it. Because all of reality, including the reality that your girlfriend, your ex-GF, and your family live in, it's all going to improve. But you have to make a sacrifice, man. If you want the truth to be the truth, you got to sacrifice everything. The price is nothing less than everything. It's your life. But that's it. There's no roundabout, cheap way of conning your way or circumventing that. You can't. If you want the truth to be real and reality to be a little closer to heaven, just a little bit, you've got to tell the truth no matter what. And maybe you figure out you're lying, maybe you figure out you were wrong. That's part of the process, man. You got to be proven wrong. You got to be proven wrong over and over again. But if you really think you know something that's true, spread that shit around. Tell people. Do it. Don't keep it to yourself. The worst thing you can do is keep it to yourself. Like, oh, the normies aren't ready for my epic wizard occult knowledge. It's like, no, the worst thing you can do is shut up. The worst thing you can do is be mute. The best thing you can do is just speak. Just talk. Do what I'm doing right now, Or else you'll realize what Jack Nicholson's realizing. I've been making out with a rotting witch. I've been making out with a nasty witch corpse. I've been worshipping a dead woman, the dead feminine, the undead witch, Lilith, feminine corpse. I've been cucked by dead women. That is a very nasty part of hell. Very nasty. God, the scene of her getting up out of the tub. Oh boy, it's Hecate or Hecate. Hecate is a goddess of the moon. And Hecate is not a rotting old woman, but she's a moon witch, basically. If you ascribe to any sort of occult, astrological type of shit, the moon is it's an emotional, intuitive, feminine, right brain, left hand thing. And those that guard it are consigned to behaviors and forces and energies that are consistent with that Jungian type of conception of that realm of the human psyche, which is intuitive. And the fact that a male character, two of them in fact, Danny and Jack, in this movie, they trespass onto the moon. It's like men walking on the moon. Isn't that funny? They go to the moon room, to room 237, and all they find is a rotting witch. Because that's what Hecate wanted them to find. Hecate was just trying to scare them. They prove themselves to be unworthy. They prove themselves to be weak because Hecate shows them the female body rots and it can't have children and it turns into a witch. Ooh, spooky. And both Danny and his father are like, oh, I'm disgusted and horrified. It's like, what, are you disgusted and horrified by natural processes? Women become infertile and then they rot? So do men. It's the same shit. But they're naive. They have psychic sensitivity, but they're fundamentally naive about the symbolism and the nature of reality. And that makes them dangerous. Both Jack and his son are dangerous things. They're like fucking enriched plutonium sitting in the middle of a public park. Why the fuck would you let that happen if you had any control over reality? Whether you're a witch or a sun god or something else. Why would you let plutonium, rot people's skin in the middle of a public park? You'd extract that plutonium. You'd get it out of there. That's what Jack Torrance and his son represent in this movie. They are human minds that have figured out how to circumvent language and be psychic. And the problem is, they've done so. Whether they've done so in a way that's good or evil, I'm not even going to comment on that. Again, I'm going to fucking puke if I try to think about that. The point of this movie is that they've done so. And when confronted with the truth of the moon landing being fake, with the truth of the moon being a feminine force, with whatever occult shit, insert anything. If you're a Zoroastrian, whatever. I don't give a shit what your beliefs are. The point this movie is trying to make is that these two male characters have stumbled onto something feminine and powerful that they are not ready to accept. Maybe you have to have a slightly feminine mind to accept it. Maybe that's true, but I don't know about that. The point is that these guys aren't ready, and they've stumbled onto something that's about to destroy them. And whatever knowledge they've found is tied to this feminine witch conception of the moon. Again, we have period blood blasting through an elevator. And Jack Torrance is now taking his own frustration at his own ineptitude out on his wife. He's saying, I wanted to physically incept into our son the male equivalent of menstruation, a masculine type of physical, bodily, sexual pain. And you wouldn't let me do it. You constructed a society that's so female dominant that it's never consensual, Jesus Christ. I feel like I'm dodging demons like Neo in the Matrix. Like the demons are the bullets. I'm dodging them in the scene. I'm trying to fucking tell you guys something without being evil, without succumbing to it. What Jack Torrance is saying in the context of this movie, what his character is saying is, I tried to physically red pill my son about male suffering in the same way that women gain access to that same knowledge fundamentally biologically. And you prevented me from doing it because we live in a society... Yeah, Joker, I get it. We live in a society that worships women to the point that it prevents or holds back men from communicating the same basic animal suffering to our male descendants that you are communicating without having to do anything. It's communicated automatically. You don't have to put the effort in. Like you don't have to be a provider in the traditional sense of a nuclear family, you also don't have to be a provider of occult knowledge. That's communicated automatically to your daughter. If you're a woman who has a daughter. As a man, you have to do that shit manually. Manual. Isn't that interesting? You have to do it manually. And you can do it in a bunch of different forms. The problem is, if society discourages men from red-pilling their male descendants about male suffering, and again, I'm not advocating that it should be done through creepy shit. That's not what I'm fucking saying. What I'm saying is that even the normal, healthy methods like going fishing, those are all being demonized right now. Why is a man telling his son how to be a man naturally and normally and in a healthy, non-abusive way? Why is that being demonized? Why do you think? It's because we're living under the aegis of Lilith. Why are men repulsed by women? Because they're controlled by Lilith. They're brain raped. They're fucked. Their blood is black. Their hair is black. They're made of ink. They're octopus, creepy, demon women. They're not real. They only exist to troll men for fun, because in this point in history, or astrology, or whatever, or in the game of reality, men are weak. So women are celebrating male weakness. They are dancing on our grave. They are pissing black ink on our grave. They're writing feminist manifestos that say kill all men. Literally, they are doing all sorts of crazy shit. And until we rebel, they're just going to keep doing it, guys. I'm not strong enough to rebel. I'm an insane, crazy genetic effluent. You know, I am genetic effluent, okay? I'm garbage. Not ironically. I really am. All I can do is tell you this. That's the saving grace of my existence, is all I can do is tell you this shit. Or reinforce it, because you've heard these ideas before. You've heard them communicated to you far less elegantly from far less reputable sources, which are probably just trying to, you know, turn you into a school shooter or some kind of other crap. That's feminine. That is a feminine rape. It's a female rape of a man, aka you. Women rape men, but they don't do it physically. They do it psychologically. Recognize that. I've bled for this, and I'm not fucking joking, man. I've spilled blood to say this to you. I know I sound melodramatic. I know I sound crazy. I've literally bled to tell you this. Please, for the love of God, listen to what I'm saying. Women will rape you mentally because they don't have cocks. Maybe they tie your balls up with a rubber band and, you know, do all sorts of BDSM shit. That's not rape. The real way women will rape you is mentally, psychologically. You have to develop a resistance to that. If you don't, we are fucked, guys. And I say that term literally. Men are fucked. You have to defend against being raped by a woman. And women don't rape physically, just like most men don't rape psychologically. It's physical. That's all I'm saying. Now, I have to get back to the movie here, because this scene is very important. The Room 237 conspiracy schizo documentary about this points out something that's true. This bathroom is a mouth. It's red and white. And the white parts of it look like teeth emerging from gums. That's all you have to know. I've summarized it now. You don't have to think about it beyond that. It's a mouth, okay? You can be raped in the mouth. Speech comes from the mouth. You can hypnotize someone with language. You can cast a spell on someone out of your mouth. You can shit out of your mouth into someone's brain and hypnotize them. That's all this scene is trying to say. Also, it's trying to say that Jack Torrance could have fucked Danny in his mouth, because what Danny says in the scene in the bathroom, again, the bathroom is a shameful, cloistered kind of area, right? He said, Tony, he talks to Dick Halloran. He says, Tony's the boy that talks to me in my mouth, and then he hides in my stomach. He's talking about his dad's cum. I hate to say it. God, I hate my life that I'm saying this right now. He says it because it's true. He's like, my dad fucked me in my mouth, and I swallowed his cum, and that gave me psychic powers. That's the occult satanic way that masculine menstruation, the equivalent of it, the dark, fake equivalent of female menstruation, is that my dad fucked me in the mouth, and he made me drink his cum, and now I have psychic powers because he did that. And I can't talk about the morality of it, man. I can't say that might have been the right thing. I can't even say it. I won't say it. There's a tribe in the fucking Amazon somewhere, in some island, where the male tribesmen make 13-year-old boys suck them off and drink their cum because they think it imbibes testosterone or chemicals or some masculine quality to them. If that might be true, I mean, please just kill me. I can't live in a reality where that's acknowledged, man. I'm past my limit, okay? I've been past my limit for a while being here. And the reason I've been here is because I feel like I can do something useful. Maybe I can't, you know? I'm about to fucking cry, man. I can't do this shit, okay? This is really... I'm really stretching myself, okay, to make this shit. This is not a joke. Anyway, let's leave that shit elsewhere. Mr. Grady here. He is a Baldur's Gate demon, and he's talking to Jack Torrance, and he's saying, "You've played this game many times, Mr. Torrance. You've logged into this server of reality, and you're always the same character. You're always an evil, creepy, psychic rape fuck." Imagine being told that. But basically he's saying your son is psychically sensitive and he's about to blow up the whole game. He's about to spurg out and ruin our nice, quiet, ordered, demonic rape simulation that we call reality. You know, you raped him as you were supposed to, Mr. Torrance, but he's not responding as he was supposed to. He's not being programmed by that satanic act. Instead, he's rebelling against it, which we don't like. We who are your masters in this game. So again, it's like, part of me is like, well, it's like if boomers were hypnotized into consenting to be a part of a financial system that would destroy their children's opportunities. You know, that's maybe potentially what this scene is saying. And there's a passage from the Bible, again, I'm looking at things from a Judeo-Christian perspective because I was saturated in the symbolism of that religion as I grew up. I don't accept it and I don't agree with it and I don't consent to my consciousness being associated with it, or any other system for that matter. But the reason I bring it up is this scene is trafficking in a line, which is honor thy father and thy mother. What if your father and mother are totally mentally fucked by a financial con that is threatening to deprive their children of financial opportunity? That's a hell of a situation to find yourself in, man. It's like they know not what they do. There's another biblical quote I'll indulge in for this. But again, okay, you got to go back to the movie. Here's Jack Torrance's line. He's like, his mother interferes. I'm trying to give him an ancient Greek butt sex ritual that will awaken his psychic powers, and his mom is saying, no, don't do that. I want this child as my witch blood bag. I want him as my little witch thrall that I can suck blood from and siphon energy from psychically. Immaterially rape. He's basically saying to this guy, my wife wants to rape my kid, and my kid is consenting, or he's weak to being raped by my wife more than he's weak to being raped by me. This is a very Cro-Magnon caveman interpretation, because of course, back in that timeline, back in that time, everyone was raping everybody. Nobody gave a shit. No one cared. We hadn't eaten the apple yet. Language hadn't come and psychically raped us. We were just physically raping each other. And I'll give you a hint. Psychic rape is 1,000 times worse than physical rape. If you've been physically raped and it's affected you, it's because you were also psychically raped at the same time. That's the reason it affected you. Rape that's purely physical is traumatizing. I can't imagine that, because that's never happened to me. But psychic rape, you gotta open your fucking mind, man. You gotta realize psychic rape is 1,000 times worse. Fucks with you a lot worse. Anyway. So in this scene, Jack Torrance, he's sabotaging the communication device. He's like, my wife's been going on Discord and learning how to psychically rape my son. So I'm gonna disconnect her RAM from her computer. And poor Dick Halloran, man, what an angel. You know? Angels can show up in any form. Don't let yourself be memed into thinking, well, this angel showed up as a type of person in whatever context that I find weird or repugnant. That means they're not an angel. Angels can show up as anything, man. Angels can show up as a brick of Lego you step on. Doesn't matter. He's here to help. Whatever he is, whatever he looks like, a servant of the enemy would look fairer and feel fouler. Remember that. And again, this is a dab on Stephen King. I love this scene. Stephen King's original had a red car being the car in the narrative that transports the family out to the Overlook Hotel. In this scene, that we just saw, a red car is being destroyed. Kubrick's basically dabbing on Stephen King. Great dab. If you're in the humiliation ritual cult network, that's a great humiliation. That's very funny, I have to admit. And I love that Wendy has a baseball bat. No one's talked about this. The American pastime is baseball. She's got a baseball bat, which is, of course, a home defense weapon. Sure, that's been the case for 100 years. It's funny to me that this movie, and again, there's all sorts of interpretations I've not touched on because they're not relevant to my interpretation of this movie. One of those interpretations is this movie's anti-American. It's about the colonization of America and the genocide of the Indians. Again, watch Room 237 if you want that take. That's not what I'm saying. But the fact that she uses a baseball bat in the context of that take on this movie is very funny. That's Kubrick literally making a joke. He's literally writing comedy. And here, of course, we have the manuscript of reality. It's almost like it's all stalling. It's all bullshit. It's all Joker tier crap. Don't pay any attention to it. Just do what you want. That's the point. The irony of this phrase is that it's true. If you get caught up in some habit of yours, that you think is more important than living, or living a fulfilling life, or living the life you want to live, whether you want to have kids or not, whether you want to be gay or straight or trans or blah, 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 whatever. The worst thing you can do is fall prey to some schizo pattern, to some bullshit, some eternal Rubik's Cube that you have to solve. That's nonsense, man. That's nothing. You'll become Jack Torrance. You'll become a retard if you believe that. That's what this movie's really trying to say. And again, I think this message is more basic than 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think this message is more important. It's more relevant to us right now. And it will be relevant past the point that Space Odyssey is relevant. If the symbolism is, if it continues to be interpreted correctly, this is more relevant. I mean, the typewriter that Torrance writes his schizo manuscript on, it's a Nazi typewriter. And I'm not exaggerating. It is a 1940s German typewriter that Kubrick intentionally chose. That's another thing that the Room 237 documentary about this movie tries to tell you, is it tries to say, look, Kubrick made this choice intentionally. It's not a lark. It's not a half-assed thing. Wendy's standing behind the elevator doors that are the menstruation doors. She's saying, if we'd had a daughter, she would have gained female psychic powers just by virtue of menstruating like I do. That would have constituted a shared bodily suffering that we could have connected with psychically, even despite language. And Jack Torrance goes, but we didn't. We had a son, and you fucked with my ability to fuck him, and your female society that demonized... I can't say this shit, man. This is too much, man. This movie is past my limits. I gotta say. I'm not even gonna say it. I want to say something. I can't say it. I can't do it. I'm out. I bow out. I'm done. You know what I probably would say? I can't say it. I can't do it. I'm done. You know? I'm gonna live in an apartment and make Let's Plays for the rest of my life. 'Cause I can't go that far, man. I can't do it. I can't say it. What I can't say is that Jack Torrance was going to claim that to his wife, if he was able to have sex with his son, he could have passed on the same menstrual level powers psychically to his son and made him able to resist the virus of language from outer space. He could have done that. That's what I couldn't say. And now that I've said it, shit, I'm still here. Fuck. Hey guys, I'm back. I took a break for a second there. I dissociated for an instant, came back. I dissociated during the blood elevator scene. So again, Wendy is saying here, I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be on this plane of reality, or maybe I did, whatever. You're not coping with the necessary actions that have to be taken to resist language. If you want your progeny to be resistant to language to the point where they can make a living in a world that worships it, and to do that, they have to resist it. They have to resist the insidious colonization of the brain by language. It's like, again, this is dorky as fuck, but Baldur's Gate did a really good job of communicating this to you. You have to develop your illithid powers, your language powers, while also resisting them. And unfortunately, you have to have sex to do that. And to be introduced to sex through language is insufficient. You have to actually be fucked. You have to actually, potentially, maybe, again, I don't advocate this, but this movie is saying this. This movie is saying you might have to be raped by your own parents to survive. That's the darkest, deepest, most true point that this movie's trying to make. It's directly telling you, if your parents didn't rape you, they love you less. They wanted you to succeed less than if your parents actually raped you. There's another movie we need to talk about, and I may do a commentary on this. In fact, I think I will. There's a movie called Society, made in, I think, 1988 or 86, which says the same thing. And again, I don't advocate that these practices should be legal or acknowledged. That's just what this movie's saying, okay? I'm just channeling what this movie's saying. I am just a screen that the light of this movie is blasting through. I am not into this shit, and I'm not advocating it. But I will say what I think this movie is trying to say to you. Maybe society should be burned to the ground. Maybe any society that produced this should be destroyed. I wouldn't object to that, okay? I'm not advocating any of this crap. By the souls of my ancestors, I'm not doing that. What I am doing is saying that's what this movie's saying. And if you haven't recognized that, you should, because films like this have not gone away. They have mutated into other forms. They've been more blatant, and they've also been more subtle. There are a lot of movies trying to say the same thing that aren't saying it blatantly, even as blatantly as this movie says it. And there are a lot of movies that are saying it a lot more subtly than this movie has. There's both. You gotta, both extremes are true in terms of conveyance. But anyway, the movie Society, I want to say a little bit about it. That movie is, in a lot of ways, a lot more blatant about this type of shit. And we need to do a commentary on it. In fact, I think I will. As I said, I think I will. Well, this is a good place to end things, guys. Wendy's dragging our epic protagonist, our epic creepy rapist protagonist, to the freezer. And we're going to end things around here. I'm going to say my piece and then I'll end things. So thank you for watching up to this point. I appreciate your viewership. Don't take this too seriously. If you were abused, know that I love you in a non-sexual way and that you are worth living. You need to recognize that the point of any psyop, whether it's trying to legitimize your abuse or criticize it, it doesn't matter. It's trying to fuck with you to make you want to be dead. You should be alive. Whoever you are, whatever you're into, even if you're into fucked up shit, I love you. I sympathize with you. You guys are not evil. None of you are. Please, for the love of God, don't hate yourself for what you are. I'm just a random asshole, but I love you. Okay? Give yourself a break. You've been through shit. We all have. Everybody's been through trauma. Everybody's been through crazy shit that we can't explain or cope with. Sometimes you can't even cope. That's okay. Just please don't leave. Please don't reject reality, because without you, reality will be worse. Without your damaged soul, reality will be a little closer to hell. Okay? I love you in every good sense of that term. Please don't leave. Okay? Please don't try to leave, because you won't be leaving. You'll be going somewhere worse. Okay? That's all I have to say. Sorry to be melodramatic, guys, but at 1 minute 28 seconds, at 1 hour 28 minutes 14 seconds, 15, 16, we're going to say peace out at 20. Hey guys, what is going on? We are back, and we're going to try to finish this commentary. I'm kind of fried, but you know what? I want to finish this commentary one way or the other. Whatever the case, whatever the sacrifice, I want it to be done tonight. So it will be done. So we have Wendy begging Jack, or rather giving him a sort of scuffed ultimatum. She's really giving this guy everything and then some in terms of patience. And she's basically saying, I think we should take our son to a doctor. I think, we should get out of here. This place is fucked. And Jack Torrance is like, well, he signed a contract, And then he goes, oh, I sabotaged the snowcat. Oh, aren't I a demonic little creep? This poor fucker. This poor, I don't even know, man. It's like, Oh, God. The movie gets kind of corny here, to be honest. You know, it kind of starts to lean on its premise a little bit. With Jack getting a bit overtly demonic there. That's, you know, obviously that's true, but he's taunting Wendy. He's saying you wouldn't let me fuck with our son in more ways than one. In an occult ritual, so I'm going to try to fuck with you. And again, this movie portrays the dark-haired, black-haired Lilith character as the potential hero. I don't think that's any more legitimate than Jack Torrance being the hero. I don't think that you should interpret that as something, some sort of epic hero's journey narrative like this. That's not what this movie's trying to say. It's not saying that Wendy's character was going to or was supposed to be some kind of savior or better alternative to the failed hero that is Jack Torrance. That's not what the movie's trying to say. Again, these narratives, because archetypes are so true and so simple, it's very easy to overinterpret their presence in a story and to apply the need for a objective hero to any story. There are some stories that don't have objective heroes. That's okay. Those stories shouldn't be lauded as masterpieces necessarily, unless they are. But there are stories where the hero fails, is what I'm trying to say. Those are not ideal stories. You really don't want to base your society on a story where the hero fails. And this is such a simple fucking thing, but we fall prey to it because we're human. Anyway, my point with saying all that is that just because Wendy has been abused by a evil demon-possessed man, that doesn't mean that her version of reality or utopia or whatever is better or even good. The reason I'm saying that, the reason I'm making that point, is because the movie is trying to incept that idea into you. It's trying to say, well, because Jack failed, Wendy has to succeed. That's also not the case, because Wendy is incapable of succeeding. She fails multiple times after this, and she has to be rescued by a black guy in a red snowcat. Okay? Interpret that however you like. Whatever your interpretation. Jack was a failed hero, and so was Wendy. The point in this movie, the point this movie's trying to make, is that both characters are failures. They are both failed vessels for language, or for God, or for any kind of good narrative. They are both fuck-ups. They're both shitheels. Both parents, the father and the mother, failed in their own ways. And here, of course, we have, Jack's bargain, like, oh, I'm speaking with the ghosts of the hotel. They're telling me they're going to unlock me. They're going to let me out of my little demon prison. They're only doing that so they can watch the spectacle of your failure, you retard. Most demons are stupid. That's the saving grace of humanity. Is demons are unfamiliar with the nature of reality, and they assume that they're going to succeed, whether they're male or female or whatever. And Jack Torrance in this scene is like, well, I definitely wanted to kill my wife and child, just like Mr. Grady described. I definitely wanted to be a homicidal maniac who created or participated in an unsustainable colonial empire that would require me to sacrifice my children or my descendants to the maintenance of that empire. That's the real reason that colonialism is fucked, because it demands, as a part of its occult inception, the sacrifice of the women and children of the colonialists, if not themselves. Like, if you're a soldier in a war, your whole reason for being a part of that war is because you're willing to give up your life for some promise that some fat, retard, demonic cuck has hypnotized you into thinking is worth sacrificing your life for, which it isn't. It's not. It never is. It never has been. It's almost like that's always been bullshit. I'm getting tired, guys. I can't scream this at you any more than I am. And this movie's trafficking in the same kind of idea. Jack Torrance, in service to his obsession with writing a book or his obsession with being a good, industrial, city-bound type of individual, has tried to convince himself that sacrificing his wife and child is worth what he wanted to do. But it's not. Even to his diseased, corrupted mind, it's not worth it. Here we have his son, fetishizing a knife. An emo kid cutting themselves. A kid who commits suicide because of some creepy ritual that was done to him when he was younger. Whatever it is. Pick your metaphor. What makes this scene so creepy is that it accesses multiple different types of experiences, whether they could or should be classified as trauma or not. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you get what this kid is doing. You understand it. Your subconscious understands it. I have a funny story about this movie that will hopefully add some levity to this interpretation. When I showed this movie to a bunch of friends of mine when I was a kid, there was a female friend of mine who I was very attracted to. I was very infatuated with. And I convinced her to come over along with a bunch of other friends of mine to watch this movie. Because I thought, this movie's really... There's something about it that makes me want to show it to people. Which in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done. But I did. I was like, people should see this movie. I'm cool. I'm godlike. I should red pill people. I should red rum people. And when I invited a bunch of friends over to watch this movie, I invited this girl over that I was really attracted to. I thought she had a beautiful soul. I think she still does. And I said to her, come watch this movie, Maybe you don't want to. Watch it anyway. And because I think, for a while at least, she was maybe curious about me, maybe attracted to me. I don't know. I don't have enough energy, and I don't have the capability to access those memories. But I probably had a chance, right? The point is that I invited her over, and I showed her this movie, and then she made a post on social media, or what passes for social media fucking 15 years ago. She made a post or a text that was like, despite my best efforts, I've endured the experience of watching The Shining. Or she said something like, I've watched The Shining despite not wanting to. She said something like that. She was being sort of coy about it. Like, this weird fucking guy wanted me to watch this movie. Be careful about that shit, guys. It's not that women are weak-willed. It's not that they're fragile. It's not that they're subject to some other standard of perception or endurance. It's that they're trying to figure out if you're a freak or not. And if they think you're a freak, rightly so, they're going to avoid you. If I were a woman, I'd do the same shit. So don't try to impress them with creepy shit. Even if they're an epic goth GF, if you show them creepy shit, they're still going to interpret that act as an expression of your own subconscious. And that's why I make these reviews, and I say they're for adults, because they fucking are, and I only post these reviews on boards where there is, it's a bunch of people that I sympathize with, but I wouldn't want to fucking date, because, you know, this type of shit is heavy. Like, there's no guarantee that if you find a partner, male or female, maybe you're a woman looking for a guy, the same advice applies. If the person you're curious about is interested in shit like this, you should be suspicious. You should hesitate, because this is not normal shit. These movies are fucked up, and the people who are watching them are probably trying to contend with a part of themselves they haven't been able to accept yet, or to channel into a productive activity or habit. And I'm guilty of this. I have parts of myself I struggle to channel. I'm not saying I'm better. What I'm saying is, if you're a person who's trying to self-improve, and also trying to find a fucking date, don't express the worst parts of yourself to that person by exposing them to things that you are attracted to for reasons of self-revision or self-improvement. Here's the famous Here's Johnny scene. This took 7,000 takes. Yeah, of course Kubrick was trying to autistically get the best take from Jack Nicholson. Of course he made him do the scene 75 times. That's not novel to me. That doesn't impress me. That's a famous factoid or a Reddit, r/did you know type of thing about this movie. It's like, yeah, of course Kubrick tortured his actors into doing what they needed to do to get his autistic interpretation of what a perfect take is. Of course he did that. He probably did that half a dozen other times that you don't hear about. It doesn't matter. What matters is we have the snow cat, the little kitty that has come to find the toxoplasm-possessed allies of the Lyran system, which is, of course, Lyre, Lyre, and Lyre, Liar, and Lyran, Lyran. The cat-based solar system, where parasites could have drifted to Earth, that had a cat-like original host. Just like the Syrians, like Syria, or the Syrian cultures that tie themselves to those star systems, which are dog parasite people. It's almost like that's true. It's almost like that's real. It's almost like I'm too sauced to get into that shit. But it's true. And I may not be able to say it in a subsequent video, so I'm going to say it here. But anyway, Wendy's gotten over her trauma. She's like, okay, I can knife my way out of this shit. Guys, straight up, this recording's going to be scuffed. It's going to be a bit sauced. I really just want to finish the recording tonight. I don't want to have to do this tomorrow. I have shit to do. So I'm trying to finish this recording tonight. So we have Dick Halloran going through the eyeball, diamond, triangle, butthole doorway. The wooden paneling of that doorway is very suggestive. And then we have Jack Torrance. He looks towards the red elevators, the menstrual elevators, and he's like, fuck that, I'm a guy. I'm just gonna ignore it. It's like, maybe men aren't supposed to receive that information in that way. Maybe they're supposed to receive it through individual actions and subsequent activities and hero's journey based things. Maybe you're not supposed to be able to fast track them with creepy rape rituals. And again, we had Jack Torrance just a second ago. He was looking over the lobby with the maze in it. The maze of the male anus. He navigated it, or he wanted to, but he couldn't, and so he went insane. He thought he had to. He was hypnotized by some kind of boomer bait, sand people mentality that told him that he had to fuck with his children in a certain way in order to prepare them for the future. But maybe that was bullshit. Here we have our poor Dick Halloran, man. He comes all this way because he genuinely cares about these people. And then he gets his ass handed to him. He gets raped. The Masonic pillars, turns out there was a guy hiding behind one to his right. And that person, aka Jack Torrance, is going to give him a nice male psychic awakening. Oh, here's a nice axe rape or ass rape. Isn't it funny how those are similar and we're seeing images of Danny's face? Isn't it funny how that violent penetration is contrasted with his son's psychic awareness of the act? Now he's limping away. His dick is so hard, guys. He's so turned on. He has to limp. Fucking Christ help me, man. And he's like, oh, there you are, son. You've been hiding with the pots and pans. You can't hide in the green realm of Middle-earth. I'm gonna come rape you anyway. I'm your red father. Your blue mother with her blue robe in the blue hallway isn't going to give you platonic blue. I'll give you platonic red. I'll force the red up your arse. And so again, Wendy's crawling up the stairs here. Everything's blue. It's funny that the feminine is portrayed as blue, and every scene we've seen with Jack Torrance has been predominantly red. Isn't that funny? Watch my fucking Burnt Orange Heresy review. I'm not going to go over it again. And he's like, I'm just having a very costumed time in here. This has nothing to do with anything in this film. This is a red herring. There's a black square on the wall that's clearly not a reference to the black cube of Saturn. It's also clearly not a mistake that Kubrick made, where there was a marker for the camera that was left behind. But for real, that is creepy how there's a blatant black sphere on a blue background. And again, the snow here is bluish, right? Think about color theory. Whether you know anything about it or not, you can figure out what blue and red represent. And Jack Torrance, here he goes, he turns on the lights. He's like, I'll fucking find him. I've got my penis axe. I need to do one final raping. There's one part of the ritual that hasn't been done yet, and this little fuck won't let me do it. I'll limp my way to him, like Jack the Ripper. Jack the Raper. And he goes into this. The hedge looks like an Indian palace, the way the snow is caked on top of the leaves. It makes the points on top the hedge maze look like parapets. And of course, he's running mindlessly. He's a child. He's terrified. He's like, I'm already awake, man. My psychic powers don't need additional rape. Please leave me the fuck alone for the rest of my life. You really don't have to do anything more. I've been awakened as much as I can be. You know, going past this point, you're just proving that you are an insane host, unable to control the demon that you pretend to be able to host. And he's following his footprints, which is, of course, a Hansel and Gretel type thing. There's a bunch of other stories that talk about footprints in the same way. And poor Wendy, she's wandering through the hotel. She's like, I had the real connection with my son psychically. Now it's been broken, and I'm freaking the fuck out. My son can't have a period? He's male? Wow, I'm such a retard. I didn't know that. I had to see male blood being spilled. I had to see Dick Halloran's corpse to realize what my husband was doing, trying to mimic the psychic transmission bond that's formed by menstruation between a mother and a daughter. I had to see this. I had to be shown this. I had to have this creepy ghost with a blood-split head blatantly tell me that I played a part as the mother. I played a part in fucking up my son. I played a part in ruining him. I played a part in raping him. I had to be shown masculine psychic visions that were created because this movie's whole premise is based on this creepy, fucked up bond between Jack Torrance and his son and the forces in the hotel. The real, another real creepy interpretation is that the mother was the real victim because she didn't know she was psychically raping her son. She had no knowledge of that. She had no knowledge of what her husband's intent was. She was just as ignorant as the child was. Even Jack Torrance could have been ignorant, but it's implied he's not. It's implied he knows what he's doing, which is why he deserves to burn in hell forever. But we have this premise about family, about psychic powers, and about the different rearing behaviors. Again, I hate that term, but I got to use it. It's what you guys understand. And the mother is just as horrified. In fact, the father's not horrified. He's evil. He's an evil prick. The mother's horrified when she sees the menstrual elevator gushing blood, and she realizes, oh my God, I thought my son was my daughter. I thought I could... I wanted a daughter so badly that I tried to treat my son as if he was female. And in doing so, I psychically raped him. I incepted him with female knowledge unintentionally. And, you know, Jack Torrance is no better. You know, that ancient Greek rape technique, there's no credence that I want to give to that, even if it's true. I don't give a shit. Even if history proves it to be totally valid, I don't care. My opinion right now is that it's not. And Jack Torrance has no more legitimacy in his complaining, in his suffering about how the kid turned out. Danny Orta, or Danny turned out in this movie, or I turned out, or any kid turned out. Pick your metaphor. This movie, again, I think is trafficking in a kind of conception of how the children of spoiled boomers turn out. And there's plenty of other spoiled generations. I'm not saying that Gen X or Gen Z or Gen Alpha are less or more spoiled. But because boomers were spoiled in a time that gave them a lot of financial freedom and personal freedom that was not mediated by anything, whether it's an AI or some kind of roundabout social media, Western social credit system, or China, or Russia, or whatever. It doesn't matter. They didn't have, or they weren't subject to the same social judgment. They had churches, they had church groups, or whatever, but those are so easily conned, man. Those are so easily circumvented. So here we have Danny. He's going back to his mom. He's like, I retraced my steps. I avoided my dad. I'm back with you. Good for you, man. You know, it's better to be Oedipus than to be some sort of eternal demon, some sort of damned, failed father. You know, the lesser of two evils. Would you rather be potentially aligned or associated with Oedipus just because you liked your mom more than your dad? If your dad raped you and was not effective in using that gesture to transmit to you something useful, and if your mother didn't do that, if she never raped you, if she never did that, then she's better, and your father should be burning in hell. He should be forced to provide you with the trust fund that will sustain you for the rest of your life, whereas your mother should be given a reward. She resisted the urge to rape you more than your father could. And that could be, hopefully, you were in a situation where neither of your parents wanted to do that to you, psychically or physically. I hope that's the situation that you grew up in. But if you didn't, if your mother was the rapist and your father wasn't, your mother deserves to burn in hell. And your father should be taken care of and made comfortable. And if the inverse or the reverse is true, then this is what your father deserves. He deserves to wander an ice maze forever and wonder. He deserves to wonder and wander. Why wouldn't my son let me rape him? Why didn't he appreciate that I did? Maybe it's because you're a prick. You did it wrong, bro. You posted your L's online. You failed. You fucked up. And maybe it's not your son's place to tell you what your mistake was. Maybe that's not contingent upon the child, or the daughter, or the son. Maybe it's not our responsibility to tell our parents what their sins are. Maybe they gotta figure that out on their own. Okay? Because we can't tell you that. I love this final shot, man. This is the end of the movie. This is a confirmation of what Grady said to Jack Nicholson, where he said, "You've always done this. You've always raped your son. You've always tried to... You've always paired yourself with a wife who wouldn't allow you to do Greek butt sex shit, and then you did it anyway. Maybe if you found a Greek wife.
Maybe if you'd found a Greek wife, you wouldn't be in the painting forever."
But this fucker did. He made a mistake. He was an idiot. And now he's suffering forever. He's always been here, as Mr. Grady said. He's always been the caretaker. He's always been the rapist. He is an archetypal figure. And he made himself into this by living the life he lived, by producing the children he produced. That's his hell. And you know what? Fuck him. He deserves it. So anyway, guys, that is The Shining. That is the extent of my ability to commentate upon this movie. I almost puked a couple times. This was not easy for me to do. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, don't worry about it. It's fine. If you've gotten this far, though, I do appreciate your viewership, and I do hope that you haven't dwelt on trauma in your life. Everybody experiences it. It takes different forms. It can't be equivalently measured. It can't be portrayed between people like money can be exchanged. That's not... Emotion is not subject to the exchange rate of any currency. You can't say to someone, I'm sad because of XYZ. Oh, I understand your sadness. That's insane. Don't even try to do it. It's a waste of time. Keep your shit in your own lane, but do recognize that there are people who are closer to you than you think, who have experienced things that are closer to your experiences than you think, and they are sympathetic. Seek them out. Be honest. Yeah, you gotta humiliate yourself. Don't humiliate yourself as part of some ritual for some cult. Humiliation's necessary, yes. The context in which it's necessary is when you have to tell the truth. When you have to tell a girl, yeah, I like licking feet, or whatever. You gotta be honest. The sooner you do that and get used to it, the sooner you can get over the trauma that gave you those proclivities. Those proclivities probably aren't going to go anywhere. They're going to be with you forever. Whatever. Who cares? That's part of who you are. Accept that shit and do your best to live with it. If you're into illegal, violent, crazy shit, I can't give you any advice, because I'm not into that. My advice is to kill yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. If you're into crazy, illegal shit, again, I can't help you. I can't say anything. But this movie is about trauma. It's about that type of shit. So, the recording's over, the movie's over, and I'm going to say very quickly at this point, thank you for watching, and peace out.